We turn our discussion now to Iran. And, we could listen to the administration and their view, their fantasy view of Iran. But there are some of us who really know what Iran is, who they are, and why they are that way. And the expert, in my view, when it comes to that is Dr. Andrew Bostom. He's, of course, author, associate professor of medicine at Brown University, and he has a great new book out there, Iran's Final Solution for Israel, The Legacy of Jihad and Shi'ite Islamic Jew Hatred in Iran. And Andrew, always a pleasure, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. I guess I had to come up with a subtle title this time around.
Yeah, no, look, you tell it like it is, and God bless you for doing that. We have a picture of the book jacket on the screen right now for all to see. It's a fiery picture of the Ayatollah, and certainly it's deservedly so, in my opinion. All right. In your view, where are we headed with Iran if we continue on our current course? What will history record in the next 5 years?
Well, I have to say that I originally started out, the premise for this book was to write basically a monograph about what had just happened when this so-called P5+1 agreement was announced on November 24th. The P5 being the permanent members of the Security Council, the victors after World War II, U.S., former Soviet Union, Britain, France, and England, and then the +1 being Germany, and then the party they're negotiating with is Iran. And essentially what this interim agreement did is it gave an international imprimatur to Iran's right to enrich uranium, despite the fact that they have openly professed for decades now that they really want to generate nuclear weapons, and that, of course, they actually plan on using those weapons, at least according to their rhetoric, against Israel and potentially against other nations, including the United States itself. And the idea that you would give a nation like this the right to enrich uranium, even with the caveat that, oh, well, we can control their enrichment to 5%, we know that this is very difficult to do even under ideal circumstances. And with a regime like the Iranian regime and with hidden facilities that are, that's how we discovered that they even had a program, is all the facilities were hidden. It was so preposterous. I had to peel it back and see, what is going on? How did we get to this point? And I wound up launching into what turned out to be a 350-page book, which examined the history of Islam in Shiite Iran since the beginning of the 16th century.
All right. And here's the deal with Iran. And people like you and me and many others, but certainly not enough, get it. And that is, unlike with the Soviet Union when we were, in the Cold War, there is no mutually assured destruction deterrence, because the leaders of Iran, the religious ayatollahs who run the whole country, they decide who could run for president, who could run for the... So they believe that Armageddon, the end of the world, chaos, blowing each other up, will bring back their missing imam, and he will then save everybody and take them to heaven, and they'll all have their virgins. So when you're dealing with those kind of beliefs, you're dealing with, in my view, irrational people, and they would welcome the end of the world. So why you would ever think that you could sit down and talk with them and agree with them and sign documents with them is beyond me.
Well, it turns out there's a belief that there's a real politic that operates inside Iran, despite what you said. And the fact is that even if you look at, and there are strong strains within Iran against Messianism, but that's totally separate from another form of irrationality that pervades the society, which is that it is toxically hateful towards the West, and it is virulent in terms of its Islamic anti-Semitism. And even if you put the Mahdi equation to the side, they have enough of a fanaticism on those bases, on the basis of traditional jihadism and traditional anti-Semitism, to do everything that you've described. I mean, so even, again, taking the Mahdism out of the equation. And to me, what the other thing that's operating here, and what I'm very harsh about, is my critique of prevailing mentality amongst conservatives, which is that, well, the solution to this, as opposed to simply destroying their nuclear infrastructure, which is the only rational solution, the alternative to what the Obama administration is doing, which is the worst possible thing, which is pure appeasement, is to wait until this alleged green movement, galvanizes. We should have supported it in 2009. It's still out there. And Steve, what I demonstrate in the book and what I recently blogged about is that the spiritual godfather of the Green movement, Ayatollah Montazeri, who died in December 2009, about whom great eulogies were written, there was not a dime's worth of difference between his ideology and Khomeini's ideology.
All right, we have a picture that you blogged out, and I saved here. We have it to put up. It's Cynthia. We just put that picture. We don't have the picture. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we don't have the picture. It's a photo of Ayatollah Montazeri. As you mentioned, he's the spiritual leader of the Green movement, the inspiration, and he's refusing to shake the hand of a Jewish Holocaust survivor, and the translation translates to, he declined to shake the hand of the man because he did not want to become dirty and his cleanliness despoiled for his salat, which is preparation for prayer as a Muslim, by contacting the infidel Jew. Now, if this is the good guy in Iran, then there is no good guy in Iran.
Exactly, Steve. And I hate to say this, but it's unfortunate that well-known conservatives and neoconservatives have been pushing this line, and it's taken to its extreme. It becomes yet another reason not to destroy, by military means, sabotage, etc., Iran's nuclear infrastructure, because that will anger these Jeffersonian Democrats waiting in the wings, and we will not achieve the goal of changing the regime. It's another pipe dream. It's not as bad as literally facilitating the current regime's drive to get nuclear weapons. But Montazeri was ardent in his support of jihadism. He clearly, was anti-Semitic. He talked also about having the Ayatollahs of Qom, the holy city, destroy the Jews at the end of time. This is not an alternative to the current regime. And again, the idea that the green movement is much more complicated than it's been made out to be, and largely it is an internal regime conflict. The bottom line is, Steve, that 83% of Iranians still want the Sharia 35 years after the Khomeini revolution.
Well, let me ask you, before we run out of time, I do want to take it back a little bit. I'm not faulting you. The conversation's been great. But I did ask you, where will we be, in your opinion, in 5 years, if the current policy is allowed to continue? So where do you see? The book is called, the name of the book involves the final solution, Iran's final solution for Israel. So where will we be in 5 years?
Yeah, I think if we do not do anything to preempt Iran's development of nuclear weapons, they will develop them. There's a good chance that either they will use them or they will give them to surrogates who have even more of a jihadist martyrdom pedigree, like Hezbollah, like Hamas. And we're setting the stage for a terrible conflagration in the Middle East, which may not be amenable to mutually assured destruction. It's possible, Steve. It's not impossible that there are rational elements, despite all the rhetoric in Iran, that would abide sort of a Soviet-era mentality. It's dubious. It's a dubious prospect. Moreover, they could allow their surrogates under a nuclear umbrella to operate with even greater impunity, to rain conventional rockets on Israel.
Yeah, you know what, Andrew, great book, great chat, and it's words that need to be heard, and you know that the mainstream media will never utter them. I just wish more conservatives and people who are, we believe, are on the correct side of these issues would utter them. Dr. Andrew Bostom, author, associate professor of medicine at Brown University Medical School, and the book, Iran's Final Solution for Israel. Thank you, Andrew. Great to see you.
Thanks so much, Steve. Take care.
My pleasure. Yeah, very frightening. So the big leader of the big Green Party, the big Green Peace Movement, was a virulent anti-Semite who refused to shake the hand of the Holocaust survivor. And believe me, the picture exists. I'm looking at it right now because he didn't want to dirty himself with a Jew. Nice. On the Steve Malzberg Show. Give me fives next on Newsmax Television.